My name is Robert Martiniano. I'm the Senior Program Manager at the Center. Also with us today is Kelly Owens from the AHI PPS, and Kelly will be talking on a couple of slides. So essentially what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the PDF that was sent out Monday. Now, you've gotten 2 emails over the last week or so. The first email was just notifying you of this webinar and that we would be sending you a link to the PDF. And then on Monday, we actually sent a link to the PDF, and we'll be talking about that. Just for notice, we are archiving this webinar, so either you or other people who aren't attending can actually listen in, get the additional information that we're sharing. So the structure today is I want to give a brief overview of who we are and what we do, and then I want to talk about the survey in particular, about how to fill it out. And our contact information is listed here, both Kelly's and mine, so if you have questions afterwards, text us or email us, excuse me. Also, my phone number is 518-402-0250, and you can call me if you need me. Some background on the Center. We've been around for 20 years. We also helped AHI DSRIP people collect data about a year ago now. So right now, Kelly's going to give us a brief overview of what we're doing here today and why we're doing this kind of data collection. Kelly?
Oh, sure, thank you, Robert. DSRIP is a reinvestment of Medicaid funds to support really the triple aim, to increase the access to care, the quality of care, and to decrease costs, as well as transition to the value-based payment system versus the number of visits and the volume of care. As workforce planning was being completed, our partners participating in the completion of our gap analysis identified that in order to meet and measure how we were doing meeting the goals of our future workforce state, we really should obtain an annual snapshot of our current state. We shared this information with the Workforce Committee, who also agreed that this would be a great idea to really monitor our progress along the way. And we're feeling that this information will really be vitally important to our recruitment and retention work group. As many of you are aware, we have a recruitment and retention fund, and we have priority areas that are identified. So based on this information, we may be modifying our guidelines based on all the information that you're able to share with us. It's also important to note that this particular survey does not include compensation and benefits information. However, in years 2018 and 2020, the survey will include that, and that is a Department of Health requirement related to compensation and benefits analysis completion as well. So the format will essentially be the same, but we'll just add some components for that particular area. But we're very excited to get the information related to this. Last time we had about 87% response rate. So that's why the group really felt that this information gave us a true snapshot of what our PPS looked like. And we're hopeful we'll get an even higher response rate this round, and we look forward to getting the information.
Thank you, Kelly. We're doing a couple of things here. One is we are providing you with the survey, and we'll talk about that in a brief moment. But we also provide technical assistance. So as you have questions filling this out, the survey out, please make sure that you contact us. And if you have questions, we are there for you. You can either contact us via the phone number or our email, and we will help you in whatever way we can. So again, we sent out an email last Thursday, we sent out an email Monday, and they both referenced our website that we've created just for AHI. You only have the link, nobody else is getting on it. It's just anybody who's related to the AHI PPS DSRIP project. And on there we have instructions on completing the survey, job title descriptions, which we'll talk about in a little bit, frequently asked questions. So as we've been doing this for a year or so now, as people came up with questions that they seem to be consistent, we were including them in to help you. So you can use those. So if you have a question, check those first. If it's not answered, then please call us. We also will be linking this webinar to that. Again, we're archiving this webinar, and it'll be on there, and our contact information is on there. So first thing and most important is this is a fillable PDF, and what you need to do is save it to your hard drive. If you try to fill it out and when you open it, it's not going to save the data, so please save it to your hard drive. Now, because there's a default name on it, we also are asking that you rename it to give some kind of description of who you are. And as you see, for the example, it's AHI telling us what organization we're doing this survey for, and then the organization who's submitting it with the address. Now, we're going to talk in a few minutes about the fact that we are also looking at by facility type. And at that point, so if one Main Street you have a CHA as well as a nursing home, for example, we're also asking that you add that into it so that we know that we're getting two survey responses from you. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're only doing it for the counties that are covered under AHI. So, for example, if you have if you're providing services outside any of these counties, in addition to inside these counties, we only want information for those employees that relate to these counties. Now, you may say, in some cases, you may have employees that are distinct and they work outside these counties in Albany County, Schenectady County, or wherever, or Montgomery County, and it's easy to just say we're not going to include them. But you may have employees that are partial in some counties and partial in others. And so what we're going to ask you to do is divide up the FTEs by where they work. So if someone works, 2/3 of their time in these counties and 1/3 in counties that aren't these 8 or 9 counties, then just indicate the 2/3, or 0.67 would be the FTE. And that would even be true if they were working part-time. So if you had a part-time person, and again, they were working at 2/3 of their time, then you're calculating their FTEs based on 0.5 times 0.67. So just remember that we're looking at, unfortunately, there's going to be some math involved if you have to distinguish FTEs inside and outside the AHI catchment area. We are also looking at, and this is a DOH requirement, to give us the information by facility type. So as you'll notice when you open up the survey, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, we ask you for 10 or so facility types based on what DOH is requiring. So you may be, if you're a hospital, you may be telling us inpatient and outpatient data. You also may be telling us acute care and mental health. So there are a number of different facility types we're going to ask you to provide your data on. And if you have questions about what facility type you are, you can either talk to Kelly and her staff at AHI, or you can call me depending on what you would want to do. And if I don't have the answer, or Kelly doesn't have the answer, Kelly and I will talk to each other and try to figure it out and get back to you with the best information possible. So again, we're talking about the same facility type, different county now. We only want one survey per facility type, no matter how many sites you have. So for example, I don't believe that Hudson Headwaters is on right now, but if you got multiple sites, but you're all providing the same type of service, we only want one survey. It's when you have multiple facility types as defined by AHI and Department of Health that we want multiple surveys. So just remember that. So if you've got a site in Warren and Washington and Clinton and you're all doing ambulatory care, one survey is fine. But again, if you're in those 3 counties and you've got ambulatory care as well as some inpatient services, then we're going to want 2 surveys. So again, if there are any questions on that, please let us know. So the first thing we're going to ask you is basically some demographics on your organization. And this is where we're going to ask you for facility type. And when you collect this, and when you select the select button, as you see, it's going to give you the number of options you have. And at that point, you can select. So let's go back to something a little, that if you have multiple sites, make sure you save the software, the PDF multiple times. So you may have one save that says 1 Main Street nursing home, one Main Street home health agency, 1 Main Street hospital. Make sure that you have every facility type has a different saved PDF, or else you're going to be overwriting your data. So this just gives some basic organizational information, and actually, as noted, the survey is due by February 17th, and if you have questions about that or are struggling to meet that deadline, please, again, contact Kelly or myself, and we will work with you on that. The other thing we're asking for is how many sites you're representing. Are you representing a single site or multiple sites? And if you're representing multiple sites, we're going to be asking you to list the addresses in Section 3, and we will get to that. So your first site is considered, you'll be listing in Section 1 here, and then remaining sites will be listed on Section 3. So let's talk about, before we get into specific data, when we want the data for. This is really a snapshot in time on your workforce. We know that, you know, people retire or temporary leave, and you hire people on an ongoing basis. So what we're really looking for is a snapshot, and that snapshot is going to be as of December 31st, 2016. So whatever your workforce was on that day, that's what we want you to report on. And what we're going to do is report that in different ways. Once we get the data, we'll be working with the AHI staff to kind of understand and put your data in a way that will help them with their different DSRIP projects. So let's talk about the data we're requesting. We're requesting, as you see on the top, number of staff, FTEs, vacancies, anticipated number of retirements in 2017, in terms of FTEs, and any new or added positions you're also going to be looking at in 2017, again in FTEs. Now let me talk about, as you see, there's a square box in front of the 01, 02, 03. You need to click on that box to activate the row. So if you have primary care providers, and that's being defined as family practice, general practice, OBGYNs, and general internists. Just check your definitions if you have any questions on that, on any of these. Once you click on that box, it activates the whole row, and you have to fill it in. So as you can see, we activated rows 1, 3, and 5. It brought up zeros to say that these are rows. The other rows that didn't activate or weren't activated, you don't have to fill in. While we're asking for a number of different occupations in this case, based on what DOH is requesting, as well as some of the different work groups thought would be good to track. If you don't have them, you don't have to fill them in, so just ignore them. So again, click on the box, it highlights the whole row, you fill it in, and then you go to the next row. Again, we added a job descriptions on our website, and we know that different people use different titles for job descriptions. Like, for example, some people may call them psych aides, psychiatric aides, some may call them psychiatric technicians. They're all kind of, it's really the same occupation. So if you have a question about an occupation, you're not sure where it is, use our material on the website to kind of understand where it fits in. Again, if you're looking through and it just doesn't make sense to you, please call Kelly or I, and we will work with you to kind of get the best fit. We also, in many of the different areas, we also have an other column. So if it just doesn't fit, then use the other column to kind of put them in. There are some issues with physicians because different people have different employment models for physicians. We want to capture all the different things. So if you're a hospital and it's an attending, we do not want you to capture that physician. That person is being captured someplace else. But if that person is under contract or is on staff, please work with us to document that provider. So definitely if that provider is employed, we're going to want you to see it. If it's contracted for, you should work with us to make sure that we're capturing it. So for example, if that person's contracted for and we know that that organization is also providing information, we don't want you to provide it a second time. Unfortunately, if that contract agency is outside of the AHI catchment area for this PPS project, then we may want you to capture it just to make sure that we have that information. So again, as I've said a number of times now, work with Kelly and I to make sure that we're able to capture that information. So let's talk about specifically what we're looking at in terms of the data. So again, once you highlight the row, it's going to ask you for the information. So let's start with number of staff. Number of staff is actually body. So regardless of how little or how much they work, they're counted once. So while you may, and we'll talk about FTEs in a second, while you may have 1 point FTEs, it may represent 3 staff. We want to know that it's 3 staff. Then FTEs, now here's where FTEs get a little tricky for not only the vacancies, but all the rest of the questions. It's going to be based on what you consider a full-time hour at your agency. So if you consider full-time hours 40 hours and somebody's working 30 hours, then their FTE would be 0.75. If you're considering 30 hours out of 37.5 hours, which is considered full-time, I can't do the math on the top of my head. It's I think it's 80% actually. But that means that you're going to be, they're actually 0.8 versus 0.75. So think about what your full-time hours, what you consider full-time hours, and develop your FTEs based on that. So if you've got 10 people, they're working 300 hours, and your normal is, again, 400, and I'll make it easy. And normally, everybody should be working 40 hours. 300 divided by 400 would give you, again, the 0.75. So we're looking at number of staff, again, so let's say in this example, 10. The number of FTEs would be, actually, it'd be 7.5, dividing it one more time. And then the same thing with vacancies. If you have a vacant staff, you're not counting bodies but FTEs. And what we also want to do for that is make sure that you're actively recruiting for someone in that position. We know that sometimes people will budget for staff and then due to a number of financial issues may decide not to actively recruit for that. So what we want you to do is only list vacancies for those positions you're actively recruiting for. Again, we want it based on FTEs. So this is a little tougher in terms of understanding where your agency is going. Again, in terms of FTEs, we want to know the anticipated number of retirements as well as the anticipated number of new or additional positions that you're looking at in 2017. So again, if you've got 10 people you're hiring, you think you'll be hiring new for RNs, but they're only averaging 30 hours, it's going to end up being 7.5 FTEs you're hiring. We are asking a little different information for nurses. We're actually asking for that information by degree type, if you have that information. So what we've given you is 2 options. One, to tell us if you don't know degree type, just to fill out for, in this case, we'll do boxes 15 and 16. We're just saying all. So I know I've got 10 nurse managers. I don't know what their degrees are. I know I've got 20 registered nurses staff. I don't know what their degrees are. Just put 10 and 20. Now, if by chance you know their degrees, then you skip boxes 15 and 16, and you would do 15.1, 15.2, and 15.3, and just fill out what their degree was, whether it's an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree. Finally, as I talked about a number of slides ago, we're also asking you to indicate how many sites you have. So if you have multiple sites, again, the first site you're putting on the first page, and then the remaining sites you'll list here. So as you can see, site 2, site 3, site 4. So 1 Main Street, my first site. My second site is 1 Elm Street. My third site is 1 Oak Avenue or something. And just list the sites and give us the address. As I said, the survey's due no later than February 17th. Initially, when the survey went out, there was a different email that was supposed to be put into effect last week, and we found out it was not. So we're giving you an alternate email to send to. Additionally, my email is on the front. If by chance this doesn't even work, you can always email them to me. But remember, you're saving it to your hard drive, at least 1 copy, and multiple copies. Again, so if you remember how to do an attachment, just put the email address in, and then as an attachment, put the PDF in and just fire it off to us. And we will be keeping track of who submits them, and we'll be getting back to Kelly and AHI staff on a regular basis to tell them who we've gotten information from and who we haven't, so them and or us can follow up with you. If people have questions, they can now ask us.
Robert, this is Kelly, and I just I wanted to share with everyone that we've just been made aware that some of the secondary contacts that were identified to receive the email with the information did not receive it. So we've reached out to Robert, and we're asking that that another email go out to all of the identified secondary contacts to ensure that the lead contact within the organization has received it, and then the secondary contact if that person has been identified.
So I've sent, I think, 2 or 3 out today already, directly from my email with the link and some basic information. And again, people can get back to me via email or the phone number. Again, my phone number is 518-402-0250, and it's Robert Martiniano. I'm the only Robert here, so if you can't pronounce Martiniano, just ask for Robert and they'll know. Okay, so any questions on this?
Kelly again. Just to let folks know that the survey, the assessments are due back on February 17th, and we're hoping that the work groups will be able to reconvene in March to look at some preliminary information. At that point, we hope to compare it to our gap analysis that was just completed last year in 2016 and kind of compare that to our progress. And we've pulled out specific priority areas at that point. We knew it was primary care, behavioral health, and post-acute care, including CNAs, home health aides, and PCAs. So that's where we're really targeting, and we really want to evaluate the impact. Nursing was also identified as an area where there appears to be a shortage in both the hospital and in the primary care settings as well, and home care settings. So that's another area that we're hoping to get more information on, and then be able to share that with all of our partners as well as where we were when the initial assessment took place and where we were as of December of 2016. I think that's it, and everyone hopefully has my email or Chelsea or JP's email as well if there's any questions with the process, as well as Robert. We'd be happy to help you with that. And as Robert mentioned, we'll continue to be in close communication. The survey's going out. We have heard that there may have been one individual who actually submitted the survey already, so we're really excited about that.
Actually, I think we have two or three now.
Awesome. So that's fantastic. So we're hoping that we'll continue to get more assessments back in.
We appreciate everybody's time. Again, please call me if you have any questions. I'm always available, or my staff's available to help you. We've been through this a number of times, so we're pretty comfortable with some of the information. Again, thank you, and have a good day, everybody.